how fearless he is in confronting our nation's biggest challenges. I admire his commitment to our values, to our country, and towards securing a better future for our children. But to our family, Ted is not a man of big titles, certainly not at home. And he's not a wacko bird either. He is simply daddy to our two little girls, Caroline and Catherine. And let me tell you, Ted is a very proud and loving father. And to me, he's my best friend. You may remember that even in the middle of that 21-hour filibuster in the Senate against Obamacare, Ted took the time to read a bedtime story to our children. And trust me, green eggs and ham will never be the same again. To me and the girls, Ted is the guy at home who knows every song in the movie Frozen by heart, and who can throw a 6-year-old princess birthday party with the best of them. And let me tell you something, the attacks on Ted coming out of Washington do not compare to being attacked by numerous 6-year-old princesses playing Attack the Daddy. And if that won't prepare you for the DC press corps, nothing will. Without further ado, here is Caroline and Catherine's daddy, my loving and thoughtful husband, and your senator.
All across this country, people are waking up and saying, what we are doing is not working, people are hurting tragically, and we need to turn this country around. There is a better way, a brighter future. How do we win? How do we inspire young people? Number one, we tell the truth. Defend the Constitution. All of it. Defend the First Amendment, the right to free speech, the right to a free press, the right to freedom of religion, and that means, among other things, not having the IRS ask citizens, tell me the content of your prayers. We need to stand for the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. We need to stand for the Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, the privacy of every American. Every child deserves an opportunity to have an excellent education regardless of your race, your class, your creed, where you come from. Every child deserves a fair chance at the American dream. We need to audit the Federal Reserve. We need to abolish the IRS. We need to stop bankrupting our country. We can either choose to keep our head down, not rock the boat, to not stand for anything, or we can stand for principle. Millions of Americans stood up last fall and said, stop this train wreck, this disaster that is Obamacare, that is hurting millions of people. The Democrats said, the mainstream media said, they said this is hopeless. Don't you understand? Just move on, just accept it. You can't do anything to stop this. Yes, we can.
Please welcome Senator Cruz.
I'm sorry.
And it is great to be back in America. It was 6:30 a.m. The cold waves were crashing. The wind was blowing. On the beaches below 100-foot sheer white cliffs, a spot called Point Lehigh, between two beaches codenamed Utah and Omaha. 200 young men under the command of Lieutenant Colonel James Earl Rudder, Texas, landed on that beach. Many of them were young, many younger than the interns, the volunteers we see here at this convention. Many of them were scared. Their mission was to take out the Nazi howitzers atop that cliff. They were to climb the 100-foot cliffs with grappling hooks.
Can't imagine that, man.
Stuck into the rocks. A feat the Nazis were sure was impossible. Those young boys marched forward into machine gun fire, into danger. Just like 57 years later in New York City, the first responders on 9/11 marched forward into danger. It was 70 years ago today that those boys scaled that cliff. It was 70 years ago today that they took out those Nazi guns. And went on to win the war and liberate the world. 750,000 Americans fought in World War II, our greatest generation.
Yes, you have to have a visitor's pass.
Okay. Including the senior U.S. Congressman Ralph Hall, who served in World War II. 22,000 Texans gave their lives in World War II. And you know, Texans have always led the way in the fight for freedom. From Dwight D. Eisenhower to Rick Perry to Rand Paul. All good, principled men who have stood and fought for freedom. It's in our blood. It is who we are. It was in the fall of 1835 that the brave Texians in the city of Gonzales received a demand from General Santa Anna that they hand over their guns.
Come and take it.
They hand over the cannon that guarded the city.
Come take it.
The immortal Texas spirit they erected in that flag that is an integral part of who we are. A picture of the cannon with the simple legend, come and take it. Today, liberty is under assault again. Like never before, our freedom is under assault, and let me tell you, again today, Texans will stand up and lead the fight to defend it. This is a convention hall filled with patriots. Just like the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence and pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred. to restore the American dream. We choose freedom. Number one, we need to defend the Constitution.
Right.
The Constitution, the most extraordinary document crafted in the history of the world other than the Bible. A document designed, as Thomas Jefferson said, to bind the mischief of government. There's a whole lot of mischief in Washington right now. We need to defend the Bill of Rights, all of the Bill of Rights. We need to defend the First Amendment, the first foundational freedom in the Bill of Rights.
From Harry Reid.
Religious liberty today is under assault. The IRS is demanding of citizen groups, tell us what books you're reading. Tell us the content of your prayers. You know what? The federal government has no business asking any American. We see the Obama administration right now litigating against the Little Sisters of the Poor, a Catholic convent of nuns who've taken a vow of poverty to care for the sick and elderly, and the federal government is litigating against them, trying to take away their religious freedom and to fine them millions of dollars to force these nuns to pay for abortion-inducing drugs of others. Let me give you a simple rule of thumb. If you're litigating against nuns, you've probably done something wrong. We need to defend the Second Amendment.
Yeah!
Justice Joseph's story, that the right to keep and bear arms is the palladium of the rights of the Republic. And in the great state of Texas, gun control means hitting what you
target.
need.
That's right.
We need to defend the Fourth and Fifth Amendments and our right to privacy. How many of y'all have your cell phones here today? Let me ask you, please, leave your cell phones on. I want to make sure President Obama hears every word you have to say. We need to defend the 10th Amendment.
Yeah!
Or as President Obama calls it, the what? The 10th Amendment, the basic protection that limits the authority of the federal government and says that sovereignty resides in the states and ultimately with we the people.
Right.
Tell me, which group's more hate-filled? Tell me, which group's more hate-filled?
The powers of the federal government, as our framers put it, are few and defined. We need to defend our nation from threats foreign and abroad. We need to secure the borders.
Right.
But there are a host of areas where the federal government has no constitutional authority to intrude its nose. For example, we need to repeal Common Core. Education is too important to let it be governed by bureaucrats out of Washington.
Hello.
It needs to be at the state level or even better at the local level.
That's right.
And besides, we already have a common core in this country. It's called the Constitution of the United States.
That's right.
Number two, we need to restore American leadership in the world. I agree with President Reagan that America believes in peace through strength. All across this country, our hearts have been breaking as we've seen America recede from leadership in the world. It's created a vacuum into which they have stepped nations like Iran and Russia and China, and the world has become a much more dangerous place.
Good. I'm sitting in SB4.
When bullies and tyrants are laughing at
on the
America,
floor, it's the second level up. You have to go.
that's not the American tradition. That's not the American spirit.
Okay.
That is not who we are. To restore the American dream, we choose freedom.
We have a zealot who has to see Ted Cruz.
There was a time when we had another president, like President Obama. We had Jimmy Carter. By the way, if there's one person thrilled at the job President Obama's doing, it's Jimmy Carter. And all of us remember how quickly things can change. President Reagan came in to office fueled by the Reagan Revolution, fueled by millions of men and women across this country, and President Reagan stood up on the world stage and he said the Soviet Union is an evil empire. He said Marxism-Leninism will end up on the ash heap of history.
Except for the United States.
He was asked, what's your strategy for the Cold War? He said, it's very simple. We win, they lose. Now all of the intelligentsia, all of the cognoscenti, they tittered at such uneducated Philistine views. He didn't have the sophistication, he didn't have the nuance, he didn't understand détente, which I'm pretty sure is French for surrender. Ronald Wilson Reagan stood before the Brandenburg Gate and uttered the most important words uttered by any leader in modern times when he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.